Hello, I'm Dr. Deborah Braboy with Anchored Hope Counseling. Thank you for stopping by our YouTube page called Hope Talks. Please stay tuned for our upcoming episode. Hello and welcome to another edition of Hope Talks. I'm Dr. Deborah Braboy and I'm a licensed counselor here at Anchored Hope Counseling. I'm here with Lori Brady and she's a licensed counselor here as well. And so today we're just going to talk a little about all things holidays. So just kind of encompassing boundaries during the holidays, dealing with the grief possibly during the holidays, COVID and the holidays. So I guess starting off with COVID, I know some states have some socially distanced rules and regulations about gatherings for the holidays. I know we don't really have anything necessarily here, but people are still being mindful of that. Sure. And trying to be socially responsible and practice that. So I imagine it's going to affect a lot of people and getting together with family and loved ones. There may be some absent because they've tested positive or maybe quarantining. So I imagine it's going to have an impact on Christmas morning and Thanksgiving dinner and all those kinds of things this year. So what are some things, has it come up with any of your clients yet?
It has somewhat. I think I actually had a conversation with a client yesterday. I think one thing to kind of keep in mind to get us through not just the holiday, but this COVID mess is flexibility.
Oh gosh.
Just being flexible. You might, if a very important person has to miss Christmas dinner because they have COVID or they're having to quarantine, have Christmas dinner on December 28th or whatever, whatever date works. So it's like, I would say flexibility with the dates, yeah. Flexibility on how you do it, where you do it, when you do it, that kind of thing. I know we all have traditions that are extremely precious to us and important to us, but I think the key for us to get through the holidays with COVID and do it with a smile is to have a lot of flexibility and a lot of not just flexibility, but also compassion as far as for what other folks are going through. Yeah. Just because they're your family member and they're your loved one doesn't necessarily mean they have the same view on things that you do, as most of us well know. So I think there's a lot of grace that needs to be offered up. There's a lot of compassion in all areas, but I think flexibility, grace, and compassion are three things that are going to be really important to get.
Those are going to be critical elements this holiday season.
To get us through happy. We'll get through. Most of us are going to get through fine, but we want to enjoy that time.
Right. And I think it's important too, along with flexibility, is just remembering the spirit of the holiday. So like you said, it doesn't necessarily have to be on the 25th of December, but just the fact that you're able to gather with your loved ones and celebrate it, whatever the day may be, or whoever may be present and who may not be able to be present. And just, you might celebrate multiple times just to be able to connect with everybody that you care about. And that goes along with flexibility and having grace, taking that into consideration.
Take advantage of Zoom, take advantage of Facebook. It's not the same, but it's better than a phone call, and at least that person can be present.
And that's something we do with our family anyway, because our family is just distant. We're socially distant because we're just geographically distant. So like you said, FaceTime, Zoom, do things like that to kind of incorporate and just make the best of it. But I think that's going to be important, and flexibility is going to be critical, and just having grace, recognizing, being self-aware, and just kind of recognizing too that there may be situations or people in your family that may even trigger you, and so being self-aware about that and setting appropriate boundaries. And the boundaries may be a time limit or just who you may even allow yourself to be with or around during the holidays. And another thing too I wanted to kind of just touch on briefly is for people that may be grieving. They may have had a loved one that died this year, COVID or not, and they may be absent from the family events and festivities. And so sometimes for folks that are in the midst of grieving, the holidays are just, it's hard for them to even find a reason to have joy or find a reason to celebrate. So just recognizing if there are people in your life that are grieving, that there are ways to still connect with them or reach out, let them know you still care about them, and just honor and validate their grief, their loss, and find out what ways may they want to proceed with the holidays. Again, taking into consideration, like what you shared, is just being flexible. And maybe for them, they need to do it on a different day because the day itself may just be too hard or too hurtful for them while they're grieving.
Okay.
And that's okay. Yeah, absolutely.
I think one thing that we all need to keep in mind, especially those of us who haven't necessarily had a major loss, or our holiday is not really impacted by any major thing that's happened to us. We just kind of float along and juggle everything and enjoy the holidays and then go on about our business. That there are people out there that the holidays are the absolute most difficult part of the year for them.
Right.
And it's so important, and it's really hard to get caught up in the season and in the joy of the season and the celebrations and doing fun stuff and just enjoying your holiday. Just realize that it's not that way with everyone.
Right.
There's so many people that are really, really struggling as we get closer to the holidays.
Right. A lot of clients that I've been working with, they've lost children. Some are younger, some are still adult children, but just, it's hard to imagine like having a Christmas or having a Thanksgiving dinner without them being present. And so just having that compassion that you talked about is just so important. And just asking them, how can we support you through this holiday? I mean, what is something you might need from us? And they may just need some space, and then they may say, let's just try to get through it, and that's okay too.
I think folks need to feel okay with asking that question.
Yeah.
You don't ignore someone's grief.
Right.
It's an uncomfortable topic. Who wants to talk about grief? Who wants to talk about loss? But it can make such an impact on a person to just check in and say, hey, I know this is a really hard time.
Yeah.
Is there anything I can do to make things go a little bit better this year?
Right.
Or whatever the case may be.
And it's super hard and awkward at the holidays because usually everybody getting together is grieving the loss of the same person.
Right.
But all of their grief, it's individual. Like they had a different relationship with that person. If it was somebody's daughter, it was somebody else's sister, and it was somebody else's, aunt or whatever. And so they all had their own different relationship. And so some of them may want to be in denial. I'm just going to pretend they're not here. But it impacts all of them. So a lot of them want to stick their head in the sand. Some of them can't and won't. But it's kind of like that big elephant in the room. Let's just go ahead and call it out and acknowledge it and recognize it. And it's important that it be recognized because that person had value and purpose and was loved. And I think ignoring it just kind of exacerbates those grief symptoms.
Sure, absolutely. And you mentioned something that's also very important to remember is that grief is different for everyone.
Right.
And that goes back to the showing grace, showing compassion, and showing flexibility, because not everybody is going to feel the same.
Right.
About a loss.
Right, they're not. And they're all going to want to handle it a little differently too. And you don't want to force how you think it should be handled onto everybody else. And so they all can have their response to it or their reaction. But it's important that it not be just ignored. I think that's really kind of the important part, is for it to not be ignored. And I don't know what holidays will look like in this season of COVID. I never thought I would call it a season. We're hoping it's a season because seasons come and then they go. This one just hasn't went.
This one is lingering.
It's lingering.
We need for it to go.
It's overstayed its welcome.
Yes, it absolutely has.
Yes. But thank you for talking with me about all things holidays, but a lot about grief and having grace and being flexible, especially in this season coming up this year. Wanted to thank Lori for joining me, and I thank you all for watching. And if you've enjoyed this, I hope you will just kind of peruse through our other Hope Talks videos, and you can subscribe to our page, and we look forward to seeing you in other videos. Thanks so much.
Hi, I'm Alia. Please like this video and subscribe to my Mimi's YouTube channel and click the bell to be notified when my Mimi posts a new video. Bye.